Hello, and welcome to our Facebook Live series, Ask the Vision Loss Experts, Coping with COVID-19. My name is Dr. Tricia Grant, and I'm the Senior Director of Low Vision Research at the Chicago Lighthouse.
And I'm Dr. Brian Walensky. I'm a low vision optometrist in New York City, and I work with Orcam Technologies. It's our intent to discuss topics, engage people, and share information as pertains to vision loss during this time of social isolation and COVID-19 pandemic. In these episodes, we bring guests and topics and concerns the community during this time.
And we welcome everyone to join, whether you or a loved one are visually impaired or blind, or you just want to learn more about the experiences of people who have vision loss, especially during this time of social distancing.
And thanks everyone for joining us each week. It's been great. If you know someone who may benefit from these discussions, or you just want to share, please take a moment and definitely hit that share button on this post.
And today we are celebrating Global Accessibility Awareness Day. And this is a day to focus on digital access and inclusion for people who have disabilities and impairments. People who see, hear, move, and think differently deserve the same opportunities to engage in web-based services, web content, and other digital products in the same manner as the rest of society. And for example, if you think about your phone and using features like magnification, zoom, night shift, negative contrast, any of those features, those are all accessibility features that make it possible for you to access the information that you need.
So this year, the organization WebAIM analyzed about 1 million homepages for accessibility issues. And amazingly, they found that actually 98.1% were not completely adhering to international standards for web accessibility, which is so vital to everyone. It removes barriers, and having things accessible unlocks possibilities. So really our question of today is, what piece of technology do you use to access information? We ask that you type it in below, and we can read it a bit later on.
Great, and in addition to celebrating Global Accessibility Awareness Day, Memorial Day is next week. So today we are also honoring the men and women who gave our lives to serve our country. And today we have a very special guest joining us, Bobby Williams. He is a Marine veteran who fought in Vietnam. Bobby is a Chicago native and a community man. He's an active member of Mount Pisgah Missionary Baptist Church in Chicago, and he's current and former president of his condo association, volunteer at the Chicago Lighthouse, father and grandfather.
Welcome, Bobby, and thank you for your service, and thank you for being here with us today. As Dr. Grant mentioned, in addition to honoring Memorial Day, we're talking about Global Accessibility Awareness Day. So what is the one piece of technology that you rely on to access information?
Well, I want to first thank Dr. Grant for inviting me to do this. My accessibility stuff is I use my iPhone and my computer to access information about stuff while I'm off here.
Oh, thank you, Bobby. You're welcome. I'm very happy that you could join us today. I mentioned so many commitments that you have, and one of them is that you're very active at the Chicago Lighthouse. And can you share with us a bit about how you first found out about the Chicago Lighthouse and how you started coming there?
Yes, I first went, I think, almost completely blind about 1995, I think it was. And I woke up and I thought someone had turned the lights out on me. And I was able to reach my phone. Luckily, I had my numbers programmed in. I had my sister's number programmed in. And I have a lock box on my door that I had her to come by and see what the problem was. So she, in turn, we call it the VA. The VA took me in maybe about 2 days later because they didn't have accessibility to me to get me there. And I was able to get a shot, I think 4 shots in one eye and 5 shots in the other eye later on. Think about almost a year's process for them to find out why I wasn't seeing. But I was born with small veins in my arm and my whole body. And usually when I give blood, they have to use the ultrasound to get my blood. Rarely I can find a phlebotomy that can do it without using that thing, but rarely they can do it, you know.
Wow.
And that was one way of finding out. And I think being in Vietnam, I think I contracted diabetes because a lot of us have diabetes. A lot of veterans have diabetes. And I think that was part of it also with the two together there.
Yes, definitely. My father being a veteran as well, so thank you as well again for your service. There's a connection I think there's been with Agent Orange, which my father
Yeah.
looked into as well, which many veterans definitely have a diabetic issue, and thankfully the VA is there. But since the pandemic started, Bobby, I know we had a big discussion with you. You know, you've like others experienced a lot of great loss during this time. You know, I know you wanted to discuss with everyone, you know, really how the coronavirus has personally affected you.
Yes. Well, my mom's sister, two sisters, they live in New Orleans and they live like 100 miles apart from each other, and they both live in nursing homes. And one died at 11 o'clock that morning, and the next one died at like 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
People must be seeing you online, Bobby.
I'm calling you.
I said people must be seeing you online, are calling to just tell you they see you.
I'm hanging up on whoever it is. Probably my daughter, more likely. Well, anyway, I had a brother at, he lives in, I think about 150 miles from New Orleans. His wife was in a rehab center, and he contracted it from her, but he survived. And I had another brother, which smokes a lot, and he had part of his lung taken out, and he did not make it because of the virus. Yeah. Then I had at least 3 people at my church that died. I don't know their names right offhand, but I had 3 people from seniors at my church that died from the virus.
I'm so sorry to hear of all your loss.
Yes.
So, you know, going back to being a veteran, the veteran population is very at risk during this time. And I think everyone should be aware of that. As you mentioned, exposure to Agent Orange, you know, gives underlying conditions, and that's for that reason. And also Vietnam veterans are of the older population who we really have to watch. And then even our newer, some of our younger veterans who have gone to Desert Storm, a lot of the issues that happened while they were there affected the respiratory system. So that also makes the younger veterans at risk too. So we really do need to take care of our veterans at this time and keep an eye on them. So, you know, one of the things, again, that we mentioned in your many activities is that you're really an integral part of your church, and you're very active, and you're there a lot. You spend a lot of time there. And during this time, you know, while people are really digging into their faith, they also can't congregate in the same fashion. So how has that and other parts of the pandemic and some of the behaviors that we've had to take into account, how is that affecting you?
Actually, the only part I miss about congregating with the people is that I'm the trustee of the church. So I'm usually there on Sundays, probably about 7 or 8 hours there, counting the money for the church. And actually, they want me to do it now because everybody's sending their money in. But I told them I cannot do that because, you know, I had a procedure done where I cannot do that right now. But and on Facebook, we do it on Wednesday and Sunday. Facebook, I think on Wednesday, I think I get on about maybe 9:30 in the morning, and that's on Sundays I get on at 12 o'clock, and I could hear the sermon and the preaching and the prayers and everything on Sunday. So I'm connected that way, yeah.
That's great.
That's great. So I just wanted any newcomers, I just wanted to let people know that I'm Dr. Walensky. This is Dr. Grant, and we're here discussing vision loss as pertains to during this time of COVID-19 and during the pandemic, and bringing on guests here like Bobby to discuss issues. And, you know, Bobby, you had a lot of family loss. You're a very social guy also. You know, what are some of the maybe coping mechanisms that you've had? You know, because you're not able to engage in a lot of the social activities. And also you just had a birthday, you know, how did you go celebrating that?
I don't know. I don't know how I'm going to celebrate that, but I was so grateful that my daughter sent me this Marine Corps timepiece here, which I wear around my neck. Oh, and what I do, I have like, so I'm sure involved in my exercise classes, well, not classes, but I do it at home like 3 days a week. And I do it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And then I have a set schedule that I get up at 5 every morning, which I've been doing for quite a number of years now. And I do that. Then I do a word search puzzles. And once in a while, I watch a little TV if I want to see a game show. And I have this show that I watch. It's like a magic show. It's called, I forgot this guy's name. But anyway, I like that show. And it really keeps me going and keeps me smiling, you know, and I like that. I like that. Like Penn and Teller, I like stuff like that, you know. And that's what keeps me going, you know. As long as I have a schedule of something that I do every day, and I'm able to cope that way.
That's great. We had a psychologist, Dr. Smith, on, and he said that to keep a schedule, to just have some goals and some activities that you do every day. So it's great to hear that you're actually doing that and it's working for you. So in the years I've known you, the thing that I've always appreciated about you is that you have a willingness to give back. You sacrificed your life as a Marine. You spent a lot of time with your church. You volunteer at the Chicago Lighthouse. You read articles on the radio, and which is a really enjoyable activity for people who are not able to access articles themselves. And even now, you are staying home. You just told us you're being called to go in, and you're doing your part in not spreading the disease. So that's a great service as well, is to stay home and take those measures that they're asking us to take. You're really following those guidelines. And another thing is you've always had a willingness to participate in research studies. And that's always, you know, even if you didn't have a direct benefit from them, you're knowing that your participation is contributing to moving science forward. And, you know, as a researcher, I really appreciate individuals like yourself who are willing to participate. So, you know, some people have a poor impression of becoming a research participant and what that means. What would you say to others who, you know, may be interested but not actually sure if they should participate?
Okay, I have a typical example here. I was in a research program with the VA where they would give you a pill for diabetes and high blood pressure. So I was telling some of my friends about that, and they were sort of reluctant. I told them, you know, they paid me well for doing this, but after this virus took over, they stopped the program. So I wasn't able to explain more to them on how to get into that. And I think it's a reluctance to take medication. That was number one that the veterans don't want to take. Okay. They take that too much medication because somewhere I had a doctor to tell me that if you take more than 6 pills a day, you're taking too much medication. So they had that mindset.
We have someone famous.
Yeah. And this is all day, though.
Yeah, no, don't. Yeah, well, we just mentioned how busy you are. Imagine everyone's calling you.
Everyone's checking on you.
Everyone's checking in on you.
Yeah. Well, anyway, they're reluctant to take medication. That's what number one with the veterans. And plus, I don't know if anybody aware of this, that it's 22 veterans a day that commit suicide. I don't know if anybody knows that. It's up to 22 veterans per day committing suicide. So I don't know what the rate is right now with this virus that's going on. I don't know what it is right now. Yeah.
So I think the message behind that is that, again, we really need to check in on our veterans, take care of our veterans. And you've been going to the VA and you've been continuing services at the VA during the quarantine. How has that been for you? And are all services open? Are mental health care services open, to your knowledge? So how are things at the VA?
Matter of fact, I got an appointment tomorrow. They call me twice to make sure that I get there 15 minutes. But they only do these essential things for them to see you. You got to really be like, if I want to go for a dental, they want, unless I'm in pain or something like that. And vision, they want take you unless you have a problem with your eyes or something like that.
Okay. Only essential emergency.
Yes, exactly. Especially we're not allowed to cut our own toenails, so they'll call me in to have my toenails cut, and I'm going in tomorrow for renal service. Okay. So I cannot say nothing bad about the VA. The VA has really taken care of me, even during this time of need.
No, that's great, and I know that you mentioned they've called on you to make sure you're okay. And again, it's about doing the urgent care and upkeep and making sure that, you are getting care. Definitely, certain things that could be put off, like dental, or like I think we talked about that. My dad loves going to the VA because the barber's there. But
Oh, yeah, yeah.
yeah, they'll be back at some point for that. But of course, that's not urgent. But really, I wanted to thank you for being here today, Bobby, talking with everybody. My condolences and all my prayers to your family as well for this hard time that you've been through. But I think you're showing people also here, what we're all talking is that there's resilience,
Yeah.
and staying social, keeping things together, keeping a schedule is so important, and think that's what works for you. Do you want to leave us with any final thoughts?
Well, yes, I'm in the process of writing a book about my life. And I'm supposed to meet with Jackie on Saturday to discuss I think the final stage of my book. And I still don't have a name for the book yet. But that's I want to do that. I want to let my family know and other friends know what I've gone through. And I think I'm one of the luckiest person in the world to went through Vietnam and come out as lucky as I am to do what I do right now.
Absolutely.
I appreciate it. My faith is the thing that I really lean on.
Yeah, that's good to hear. And you're a very interesting person. You've lived many lifetimes, it seems, and I think you're very inspiring, to say the least. So I think that your book is going to have great success. So you have to keep us updated and posted on when it comes out so we can let everyone else know.
Okay, I will do that.
Well, thank you again for joining us today. We really appreciate you being here and talking to us and taking time out of your very busy schedule. We really appreciate that.
Okay. Okay.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
We get to those phone calls now.
Okay, I will.
Right. All right.
Okay.
Thank you, Bob. So again, we asked the audience to let us know what technology they're using.
Yeah.
Let me see what responses, if we got some. Let's see. Robin, actually, as usual, she's here. Hello, Robin. Not an accessibility device, but Amazon Echo in so many ways to keep you busy and very accessible. That's true. That's great. And then Andy Fabino commented about research. And he says it's so important to always stay involved. And we're going to talk about that as well.
Yeah. Thank you, Andy. And did you notice there's this new feature, top fan? So Robin and Andy are top fans, so thank you. Thank you for being a top fan. So Dr. Walensky, one of the ways that you and I met is actually the way that you and I met is that we're both doing research with, or doing work with OrCam, and they're the developers of assistive technology, which is really relevant to what we're celebrating today with Global Awareness Day. So many of my colleagues at the Chicago Lighthouse actually use the OrCam My Eye Read, and that's the one that clips on for anyone who doesn't know in the audience, it clips on your glasses. And one of the things that they really like about it is how it makes websites that are not accessible become accessible. So what new things have OrCam been working on?
So you mentioned the OrCam My Eye, and one of the new things that OrCam came out with, because that's a wearable device. And it's a wearable AI-driven assistive technology for people who are blind or visually impaired. But now they've come out with a handheld device called the OrCam Read. And what the OrCam Read is, it's for any audible readers, somebody who has reading challenges, but also for individuals who are visually impaired as well. And initially, I thought it would only be for people who are mild to moderate low vision, but some blind users did pick it up and are using it. So I get surprised all the time. Like I say, I always learn from my patients. Just to mention quickly about the device, because it is brand new, and I'm excited to get back to practice once everything opens up to start showing it to everyone. Mostly I've been doing some online demos, but the device is about the size of like a large magic marker or a large highlighter, and pretty lightweight, and it's handheld. And it basically has a button that's called the trigger button. And what it does is it takes a picture, and then that picture will read back the information. So it's basically a scanning reader, and it reads me the text. And the way it works is I just line it, I hold a book or a page about 12 inches away, and there's a little laser pointer that comes out, and that laser pointer can either be a cursor or a bounding box, and I could read just from any point I want, or I can even read a whole page. So what I was going to do is, let me turn it on. I'm not going to read a whole page, but let me grab a book here. And I was just going to just show kind of everybody how it works. So if I just hold a book up and I grab my Orcam Read and I hold it just like a pen. And again, a little button here, and I push on the button and a cursor comes up, takes a photo.
Years ago, Wikipedia alone claims to have over 50 times as much information as Encyclopedia.
And now I'm reading this book. So if something wasn't accessible to me, I can now have it accessible anywhere I want to go. Doesn't matter the internet, I can take this anywhere I want. I can also make it go faster, slower in the reading. I can also hook it up to Bluetooth earphones or hardwire earphones if I want some privacy or everybody else to hear. So it's an amazing device for people to try and see if it works for them.
That's really cool. And it looks like you could just stick it in your pocket. Like you said, it looks like a highlighter that you could just stick in your pocket.
Exactly.
And thank you for the demo. I think everyone is always wondering what is on Dr. Walensky's bookshelf back there. So thank you for giving us a little preview into what's on the bookshelf. So yeah, that device sounds great. I think, even reading some of my research articles can be very tedious at times. So that's a useful device to just click and have things read back. So we have a couple more comments here. We have Robin says that Zoom is very accessible to keep in touch with people. That's a really great point. And we're using Zoom every day. I know I'm using it every single day. And Sandy Murillo says the facial recognition feature is one of my favorite OrCam features. So Sandy is a MyEye2 user.
Great.
And
I see Evie says, what are blind users saying? I've just that don't count somebody out for a piece of technology. You got to try it, see if it works for you. So there's actually video. Maybe we can even share it somewhere of someone actually trying it out and using it. So maybe we can share it on Facebook later.
That would be great.
Who's blind, who tries it out and get it directly from the horse's mouth.
Yes, I totally agree. And I just want to mention that Jessica Grant of the Chicago Lighthouse wrote a really beautiful piece about Paula Sprecher, who is an OrCam user. She's also a teacher of the visually impaired, and she's a mother of 2 daughters who have visual impairment. So the article is released this morning, and it discusses her experiences with the OrCam. So to read this article, to learn more about the OrCam and other assistive technology, we are guiding you to our Ask the Experts webpage, which is at www.chicagolighthouse.org. And then you type in Ask the Experts in the search menu, and that will provide links to the Chicago Lighthouse's Tools for Living online store and a link to the article that I just mentioned. You can also replay all of our previous episodes and link to resources that we've mentioned in our past conversations. And we'll ask the Chicago Lighthouse to please post a direct link in the comment section below. Looks like we're getting some other questions here. Lisa Birmingham says, I love how these assistive devices are becoming smaller and more discreet. That is such a good point. Even if you look back 10 years ago, devices were all wired up and a lot of them were a lot bigger, and they are becoming really, really small. OrCam is very sleek. I sometimes don't even notice that someone has it clipped on their glasses. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I was going to say we had some questions from last week that we want to circle back to. And we had John Smith ask, what is the progress of treatment of X-linked retinitis pigmentosa? I heard the Chicago Lighthouse is working on it. And I wanted to confirm with the Pangera Center for Inherited Retinal Disease whether they are working on anything, and they did let us know that they are not at this time. But Dr. Walensky, you did some background work on this. Can you share with us what you've learned?
Definitely. So I know that there is a lot of research going into inherited retinal diseases such as stem cell research and definitely gene therapy. But specifically for X-linked RP, really the three companies that are specifically looking at it. And again, we'll list this stuff later in links if people want to go to, because if you're interested in, definitely go for yourself and read up on these things. Is the three companies specifically are AGTC, Mira, MEIRA GTX, and Nightstar Therapeutics. Those are the three companies pretty much doing some research for X-linked RP. Now for X-linked RP, you need to have the gene, the RPGR gene. And that is basically, you have to have a genetic testing and make sure that that is the type of RP that you have. What they're doing with these studies is mostly they're in phase 1 and phase 2, and we'll talk about that in a second. And they're working on the viral vectors for injection into the eye and also safety protocols. So that's really what's going on right now in as far as X-linked RP. Now, just last month, or 2 months ago, sorry, Nightstar Therapeutics released some early information about their study, about what they were doing and their RP investigation. And they had just recently listed 18 patients that show 18 patients in their study. 6 of them showed a increased sensitivity to central retinal cells. So because of that promising find, they're hoping that this will then further support studies for it to go further. There are more people that are put into these studies, and they do have, you know, if you're looking into studies, you know, and want to search further, you know, we're going to talk about where to find that as well in a moment. But I wanted Dr. Grant to really just let people know, what is phase 1 and what is phase 2? What does all that mean?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, and it's really relevant today as well, because we keep hearing in the news about a COVID-19 vaccine and how it's in clinical trial phase, and they may say phase 1, phase 2. So what does that mean? So phase 1 is really a safety study. So it's a very small study. It's going to only include 10 to 50 patients, and the purpose of that study is just to test out dosages and to be sure that they are safe in a human. So it's the first time a drug is going into a human body. So they're going to study the effect of that and make sure that there aren't any severe side effects to that. If there are, it can't move to phase 2. So once it moves to phase 2, then that is where the researchers are looking at still monitoring safety, but also want to know, is this drug effective? Is it doing what we expect that it's going to do? Is it treating the disease that we think it's going to treat? So that's a larger phase study. So that will include maybe 100, 200 people. So it's larger, and they're studying the effectiveness, and they're also studying the safety on that. And a phase 2 trial cannot move to a phase 3 trial, which is also very important, until they show that it's safe and that it is doing what it's supposed to do. So once it goes into phase 3, that is when it's going into a clinic, and you'll usually see 2 groups in that, either a non-treatment group or a different standard of care treatment. So if you enter into a phase 3 trial, you know that it takes years and actually a lot of money for companies to get to phase 3. And phase 3 is really important because you cannot get FDA approval or clearance on a drug or a device until you enter this phase 3. So phase 3 is we're looking at 2 groups to see if one group is more effective than the other, and they expect that the drug is going to be more effective than the standard of care. And once that happens, there's a whole FDA process that it has to go through, and then the drug is put on the market and available to the population. So again, this takes a lot of years and a lot of work, but once you're in that, or once you see a drug on the market that's FDA approved, you know that it's gone through a lot of testing and a lot of safety monitoring. So it's important to understand that information.
No, definitely. There is a lot of promise in gene testing, stem cell research, but you do have to be careful. You do have to know, what you're getting yourself involved in. And also when you're reading results about yourself, know where that study is coming from. Know where the results, you got to really read deep into it, because if it's just a company talking about it, they could be, the results might sound positive, but really it was only maybe a little bit. So you really have to be careful. There's some crazy things going on. I mean, there are actually pop-up stem cell research places coming up, and they're doing treatments. There was a story about 3 people in Florida who had macular degeneration and got injected with, you know, in our bodies, in adult body, we have adult stem cells that could be reprogrammed into sort of an embryonic state. So we also have the adult stem cells in our adipose tissue. So actually, it was being somebody down in Florida was injecting that into the eye, and they were charging people, I think it was $10,000, and they were injecting it both eyes on the same day. These three individuals, one was driving at the time, can no longer drive. Now they're blind because of this, and the other two lost vision as well. There was a lawsuit, and I believe the clinic got shut down. But there's a lot of unregulated clinics that are out there, and you got to be really careful. So that's about an example of that, and it's still happening. You know, I do think the eye and research, it's great and promising that it's going to take, but the bad part is it's going to take time. A lot of the studies right now today is safety. That's what it's all about. And the reason why the eye is going to be, I think, one of the first successes of all of this research is because the eye is immunoprivileged.
Yes.
It's easily accessible. So we're talking about accessibility. The eye is very easily accessible. And you can get a subjective response from an individual that if their vision is better or not.
Absolutely. That is very true.
So these are the reasons I think the eye is a great place that they're doing research, and we're going to see success. It's just going to take time, patience, and understand having, you know, some patience, I guess, and not believing every snake oil thing that you hear about that's going to fix vision, or that exact research is going to be well. There's some cool things coming up with gene therapy and editing and gene editing, something called CRISPR-Cas9, which it's a long-term CRISPR. If anyone is interested, really look that up. I'll put a link to some cool stuff on that, but it's called clustered regularly interspaced short palindromic repeats. I can't even say it myself. CRISPR. Really neat, but I'll put a link to that of what's actually going on in gene therapy. I know we also had somebody ask about optic nerve studies. Yeah. So Dr. Grant and I actually went online, and I want Dr. Grant to talk about that because this is very important to look at clinicaltrials.gov when you're trying to research legitimate studies.
Yeah, so we did an exercise yesterday, and we wanted to share it with everyone. This is something that was designed for you, designed for the public. It's a website, www.clinicaltrials.gov. And this is a place where researchers, so all researchers that are doing human subjects testing, we have to register our clinical trial onto this website. And you can't publish your findings, you can't do presentations, you need as a researcher, you need a registry number for clinical trials. So this is something that needs to be done. We need to update it regularly. And what it is a big database. It's a huge database. And you go on to, again, clinicaltrials.gov, and you enter in your condition. So you can enter in, for example, we did an exercise with optic nerve yesterday. Someone just said optic nerve. So we put in that as a keyword, and we came up with, I think, 350 studies or something, a huge amount of studies. So yeah, so all over the world. So you can continue to narrow down these studies to see who's recruiting. If the studies are done, when studies are finished, we have to go back into the registry and update and put our outcomes on there. So it's also a really good learning tool. You can, if you're discussing medication with your doctor, you can actually take that medication, go back and look in clinical trials and see what work was done. Look at the phase 1 through 3 trials that we just talked about earlier. So you want to go ahead and plug that in, and then you could find who's recruiting, who's not recruiting, are they in your area? And then you want to give them a call, because a lot of times if they're not in your area, Bobby Williams mentioned being paid for a study. We never want to pay people to be in a study, but what we pay for is your travel expenses. So sometimes if the trial is further away, there may be a way that you can go, they'll pay for your travel there. Because again, we really value people who participate in clinical trials. So we want to make it easier for everyone to come in. So, and then another thing that Bobby Williams mentioned was, taking too many drugs. And I just wanted to put in there, every time you enter a clinical trial, your medical history is collected. And the reason it's done is to make sure that you're not taking specific drugs that are going to interact with one another. So that's another indicator. If someone is not taking this medical information, if you don't find them on clinicaltrials.gov, you really need to be suspicious and probably go away from them. But you want to use clinicaltrials.gov and just the internet overall to arm yourself with information. Is your best tool for your health and to take care of yourself and to be safe is to know the information. And if you don't know it yourself, give someone a call and ask them to go over it with you. You can call me. I'll go over things with you.
I would say also go over it with your doctor. If your doctor doesn't,
Absolutely.
they can look it up for you and interpret what's happening. And maybe you want to look up some of these studies and find out what's going on. But definitely go through clinicaltrials.gov, because these are the ones that are approved. These are the ones that are looked at. These are the ones that you can trust. If anyone's telling you pay for this injection into your eye and it's going to make things better, stay away. Stay clear. Don't go. There are these pop-up clinics and they're dangerous.
Terrible.
So, you know, let's get back to but just during this time, I mean, studies are going on. So during the time of COVID-19. So in your aspect, what's going on in vision research? Are things on hold? What are the plans on opening things up and getting people to trials?
Yeah, so that is, it's a great question, and it's true. Things are on hold. We can't see patients, we can't see study patients during this time. So we've had to, if any studies are actively recruiting or actively seeing study patients, we've had to put them on hold, and we will reopen where, like all clinicians and providers, and actually everywhere in the public, are finding ways to bring people safely into their facility. We are working on bringing people safely into our laboratory. So we're making sure that when you're in there, you're going to be by yourself, and that the researcher is a certain distance away from you. So we're working on that now. A lot of the cool parts of research right now is that we were already looking at a lot of tele-rehab and telehealth methods. So this is a really great time to implement some of that research. So we're working on that as well, how we can bring some of these interventions to your home. So that's where we're headed. And I think you're going to see a lot more of that, which I am really excited about, because beyond COVID, it just gives access to people who normally don't have access to interventions. It brings it to their doorstep. So that's really what we want to do. So I think you can expect to see more of that. But yes, once we call you in to come back to the clinic, back to the laboratory, you can rest assured that we're putting all the safety measures in place, but it's going to take some time. So we had a couple more questions from last week that this one is for you, Dr. Walensky. Is eye washing with baby shampoo as effective as hand washing to prevent transmitting COVID-19 to the eyes?
So a lot of people use baby shampoo. I do as well to wash the lids. It actually helps with blepharitis. It helps with dry eye. It keeps the lids clean. Us guys are terrible at cleaning around our eyes, just because women are better because they take the makeup off and everything like that. We're horrible with it. So I definitely, in practice, I see a lot more men with what's called blepharitis than I do women. But baby shampoo is very good to clean around the eyes. I use it as now a shampoo as well. So why not use it as both? But, I guess washing in general is good to help with prevention of COVID-19. Specifically, they talk about the virus is very susceptible to washing and hand washing. But again, you just don't want to be touching your eyes. You don't want to be touching your face. Don't want to be touching your nose. These are all mucous membranes where the virus can be transmitted. So it's not really the baby shampoo doing anything. Yes, washing your hands, baby shampoo is fine. Any type of, soap. Basically just get out that good lather, definitely that 20 to 30 seconds of washing your hands, sing happy birthday twice, get between your fingers, the tops, getting your nails and under there, basically everywhere, and then basically getting your thumbs even, because we forget about that, and then using something to shut off the sink and not our bare hands. So really you just don't want to be touching your eyes. So it's really nothing to do with the soap that's preventing COVID. It's more of don't touch your face. Try not to.
Don't touch your face.
As you can. Even if you're home alone, don't do it.
It's so hard, but you're right.
I know. And I know we have a long episode today, but I think we have what do we have?
One more question.
More question we wanted to get to?
Yeah,
okay.
We have one more. This comes from Pam Rody in Arlington Heights. And she says, I have to take my mom out of town to visit an ill family member. Is it safer to travel for a 1,000-mile trip by car or by plane? And I think this is a really good question. So sure. What do you think?
Well, I don't know. So Pam, who wrote it in, I don't know if she's talking about herself, who has a visual impairment or blind, or it's her mom. But either way, what I'd be concerned about traveling is traveling to unknown places. One, you familiar with where you're going for accessibility issues, for orientation and mobility? All of those issues come into play. Are you traveling with someone? If they're a sighted guide, do they know? If you need a sighted guide, do they know what they're doing? Do they know how to be a sighted guide? You're going maybe to a place you don't know. And also, if you're going to a place, check out not only the state, but the city or the town or the county you're going to, and check out their rules and laws. Because right here, New York City is totally different than going to be somewhere else in Middle America, because we have so many people here and we still are sheltering in place here. Just yesterday, I felt very uncomfortable. I went to a pharmacy here, a local chain pharmacy, and the woman behind the counter did not have her mask on. And actually someone complained and walked out. And I kind of went through with the purchase. I felt uncomfortable though, but she kept saying she can't breathe, she can't breathe. And I understand, it's, we're all dealing with this in our own way. She's probably having some issues with wearing the mask and feeling trapped. And really traveling at this time, we have to think about, one, our orientation mobility, two, where are we going and what are the rules of our laws in the area of where you're going. And, and also if you've been sheltering in place together, that's great. But if you haven't, who are you seeing when you go to these places? You want to think of them. I have a friend who called up who his daughter was going to go visit her sister. And her sister said, please don't come, because I have my grandkids here and we've all been together sort of like in this little pod, and you're coming from an area of more population and I don't know who you've been in contact with. So it's about spreading the virus to others. I mean, we still have some time, I think, in this, but there's a lot to think about. Again, I'm not the expert in like travel and where to go, but it's just a little common sense. And then the other thing is also when I was in the store, it's tactile spaces in the stores that someone who's visually impaired or blind that doesn't see. So these tactiles, I was recommending that we need tactile spacers. Some maybe feel on the ground because they're having these like tape or circles on the ground where you stand 6 feet away from the person maybe waiting in line at the checkout counter, but someone who's visually impaired or blind is not going to see it. So they need tactile spacers. So, so these are these issues that we want to think about when you're traveling.
Yeah, I think that listening to you talk, I was thinking that, if you're driving, you're going to have to stop in more cities, in more states, more gas stations, more hotels maybe. It seems like you have more opportunity, and probably in airports, in airplanes, there's probably a lot of safety measures now that have been implemented, more than you would find in like a hotel or a gas station on the way. So maybe the answer is take a flight. Maybe, I don't know. Don't hold me to it, but I think.
And also, do we need to ask anyone we come into, are you wearing a mask? Because some people are not wearing them now. I see some people here in New York City who are just getting frustrated, like I mentioned that woman, and they're not wearing it. So maybe if you're blind or visually impaired and can't see the person that you're communicating with or who's helping you, you might want to ask them, are you wearing a mask? Are you,
good idea.
That's
good
all.
Idea. Well, thank you everyone for bearing with us today. We know we went longer today. We had a lot of information to cover. We hope it was useful.
Yes, and I enjoyed having Bobby Williams here, and I thank all veterans for their service.
Absolutely.
Very much. So
okay, well,
thanks for everybody joining us today. Thanks for coming every week.
Yes, thank you.
With everybody to stay well, stay safe, and remember always, wash your hands and don't touch your face or your eyes.
Bye.